Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Finance Bunch Presents Girl Talk. I'm your host, Charline, and today we have in the studio with us Tonya Brown. Tonya is the owner and broker of her own real estate company, and we're answering all of your questions concerning how to become a realtor, how to become a mortgage banker in some cases, and also about how to be a successful entrepreneur. Hi, everyone. Today, I'm so happy. I have Miss Tonya Brown in my studio, and she's a realtor extraordinaire. Her real estate company is Blisss Life Realty, and I'm just happy to have you here. Me being in mortgage banking, you being a broker, and knowing both sides of this, I know it's going to be a great conversation. So, welcome to Girl Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. How have you been?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
We were talking just before we started taping, and we are talking about how we've lived like for probably the last 12 years, like in parallel universes.
Correct. Ever since our kids started college.
Right.
Yes.
And we met the very first
First
day,
day.
which was so interesting. And, you know, it's funny, Brienne, your daughter, and her life partner, Mark, and my son, Matthew, have been friends from that day to this
Till
one.
this one.
And they are such good friends, and they work on projects together, and they do things. And it's just so nice to see when your kids meet someone or people at school and they're able to maintain a friendship. You know, it's just really nice.
Yeah.
Now, you and I have a lot in common,
Yes.
a lot. So we're both mothers and we have two children,
Yes.
right? And then our children are now adults, thank God,
Thank God.
right? And then we have these beautiful grandchildren
Yes.
that we get to enjoy, play with, and take back home.
And take back home.
Right. So I think for me, the best part of motherhood right now is being a grandmother,
I would say so.
right?
Yeah,
Because
I
it's
would
less
say so.
responsibility and so much fun.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. So now, I know that you have a dual real estate business going on. So I really want to talk about that. There's so many people who are fascinated by real estate and mortgage banking, and you know, they want to know, like, how do I get involved? So I want to talk about that today,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so now what I didn't know before was that you were a social worker before you became a realtor.
Yeah. That was many, many moons ago.
Right. Now, but how did you make that successful transition?
Okay, so basically I obtained my real estate license while I was still working as a social worker.
Okay.
And then I kind of transitioned over into mortgage banking.
Also, you did mortgage banking first. Okay.
Yes. So I transitioned over into mortgage banking and I went to work for one of the big retail companies, the retail giants. They're no longer around. But it was excellent training.
Absolutely.
And my goal when I went there, my goal was always to start my own brokerage.
Okay.
So I went there with that in mind. So basically I made a plan and I executed the plan. So for the 3 years that I worked for that retail banker, I actually took the classes that I needed to get my broker's license.
The broker's license, yes.
And then once I got my broker's license, I was ready to go. And I took a leave of absence for 1 year.
From your job?
From my job.
Ah.
And I gave myself that 1 year, like, you're going to make it, or if it doesn't work, you can always go back to work.
Go back to work, yes.
So that's what I did. I took the 1 year leave of absence. I like to say this just to let people know because sometimes we kind of hang on to something. My job at the time, I was already making six figures.
Right.
So I actually walked away from six figures to start my own thing.
Right.
And a lot of people are very apprehensive about that because
Definitely.
they're like, oh, well, I make this much money, so I have to stay put here. But within 6 months, I had already made my salary. Right. So I've been on my own, been a small business owner ever since.
Now, I agree with you in that sense because there's so many women that I run into or talk to, and they'll say, you know, I've had this job for this many years and I can count on the paycheck, and you know, I don't like it. I'm tired of doing it, but I don't want to walk away from it because I can count on the paycheck.
I just say make yourself a plan and then execute the plan. It wasn't a short-term plan. I
Right.
mean, it wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this for 6 months and then I'm going to leave my job. No,
Right.
it was an actual long-term plan. And so that's what I always say is make a plan and execute the plan. And we talked earlier about being motivated.
Yes.
Motivation isn't something you can teach.
No.
You just have to be motivated on your own. So you have to, motivate yourself so you can move forward.
Exactly. And motivation is something that, we're talking about that you can't teach, but if you're a motivated person and you seek out motivation from others, it can help trigger and keep you going. And I always tell people that, the side of being an entrepreneur, this glamorous side, the six-figure incomes and all that, and sitting here dressed nicely and all that is great. But it's the behind the scenes is where you need to be motivated, right?
So I say that I would prefer to work 60 hours for myself than 40 hours for someone else.
Same here.
So, but that's something that comes from within.
Right.
And like you said, having other motivated individuals around you.
Exactly.
So that's really what it's going to take. It's going to take you to make a plan, execute the plan, and no matter what, just stay on your path and move forward.
Yes.
Don't get discouraged by naysayers.
Please don't.
There's a lot.
There's going to be so many.
And people thought I was crazy. They're just like, what do you mean you quit your job to start a brokerage? That's
right.
what I want to do.
Right. And, they're like, no, you're successful. You have a great career. You get, you have a great paycheck. Why do you want to, and a lot of times they'll say, why do you want to mess that up? Right?
Yes.
And it's like, you're not messing it up.
I wasn't messing it up. And to me, it was probably the best decision I ever made because, yes, now I'm working for myself and many times I'm working maybe more hours. However, the way I was able to work those hours out allowed me to spend more time with my children and my family and to be more of a present parent.
That's very true.
It worked out.
Yeah. Now, as a entrepreneur and, coming from the, social work side of things, you are already compassionate.
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, you are. And it was different because it's still what I do now still allows me to help people.
Right.
So that's the thing. It's just I'm just helping them in a different way.
In a different way.
Yeah. So now I'm helping them with their largest asset. The largest asset they'll ever have.
That's right.
That's what I help them with.
It's purchasing a home.
Yeah. So it's a little different. Social work was a little
more restrictive.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little more restrictive and a little more emotional.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. And this is emotion in a good way.
Right.
Right? I mean, there's stress, of course.
There's a lot of stress with
attached.
what I do now.
Right.
But it's a different type of stress. At the end of that stress, I'm usually going to say have a happy feeling.
Yes.
Where I didn't always get those happy endings in social work.
Right. So now, how long have you been in mortgage banking and a broker?
I've been in mortgage banking for 22 years, since 1997, and I have had my own business, my own brokerage since 2000, so 19 years.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. So there's longevity in it, and that's the thing I like to tell people too, is that it's not a quick road to success.
No.
It's the building blocks of the
stumbling
blocks, the building blocks, because there's ebb and flow. We talked about that, there's these highs and there can be some low lows where it's low for a while. And so disciplining yourself with your financial budget is also something that's required no matter what type of entrepreneur you're going to become. But especially when you're in mortgage banking and in real estate, because you do get the big checks, but how often those checks are going to come isn't necessarily something that's totally scalable.
Right.
So to be aware of that and always keeping yourself on a budget is something that
it's very, very, very important. For myself, I think initially because I started and I was kind of young, so I spent. I made a lot of money and I spent a lot of money. Now I'm very much into planning.
Yes.
and managing my money. So what I learned is if I don't manage it, it'll manage me.
That's right.
Right? And so especially during those downturns, like we know we had that
Oh my goodness.
nice big recession a
Yes.
few years back. So during that time, I probably lost 2/3 of my income.
So did I.
Yeah, but what I learned is had I managed the money that I made properly,
Yes.
I wouldn't have really felt that.
That's right. Yeah.
But since I didn't manage the money that I made properly, then I found myself at times like, oh my God, now I got to start over and rebuild and recreate and stuff like that. But it was a life lesson.
It was a life lesson for all of us,
For
I
all
think.
of us. And it was a life lesson for me, but also for my agents, because any agent that comes in that works under me now,
Yes.
that's one of the first things I make them do is a financial plan.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And that's so important.
And because sometimes they're younger.
Right.
So what I'm trying to stress to them is that I don't want to see you make the mistakes that I made.
Right.
So I'm not just trying to be on your back or anything. I just don't want to see you make the mistakes I made.
Right. It's funny that you would say that because Sunday I had some people over and we were talking about, the recession and how, for me, and probably you too, we have these ebb and flows in the mortgage and real estate business. So you think, okay, it'll last 6 months. Who cares?
Exactly.
It'll last a year.
And you're prepared for maybe about 6 months.
Yeah,
and
6 months or a year. You're like,
months
whatever.
rolls by.
And then the year rolls by, and now you're rolling into year 2, and you're like, wait a minute, is this going to end? But because if you would have had, or we would have had a financial plan in place, that we would have been able to weather that
storm
a lot better.
And a lot of that I feel has to do with sometimes with us being women, because we weren't taught necessarily to plan the money that way.
Exactly.
That way.
And I also think that as women, I could be wrong, we give more away.
We do.
We give more away.
I just made the statement that I made a lot of money and I spent a lot of money. But I should have made the statement that I made a lot of money, I spent a lot of money, and I gave away a lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah. So sometimes we give away to our detriment.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's funny that same subject with almost every interview I do with successful women, that comes up is that we as women tend to give so much away. And it's not like a bad thing, but I think if you have a financial plan in place, you know where you're pulling that money from. Because every dollar has a line item that it's attached to. And so when someone asks you, can I have or borrow, which is really, can I have this much money? When you pull it, you know where you're pulling it from. So I think it helps us not make so many emotional decisions.
It does. Now, I will say this. When I started to realize, like, okay, you're kind of giving away way too
your
much,
future.
right?
Yeah.
I watched Oprah, right? And so she kind of made this statement that I guess like when she first started her show and so forth, she had like family members that needed this and that from her. And so she decided she would give a set amount.
Right.
And so I said, okay, that works. I'll just give a set amount.
Right.
So I figured it out now. I'll just give a set amount. The problem is I had an amount set, but then if you have 4 or 5, 6 people asking you and you're giving that set amount, it still adds up to a lot of money.
Yes. That's very true.
And so I was like, okay, so that didn't work for me either.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now for you are in California and Georgia. You're licensed in both. So what are some of the differences between doing business here in California and doing business in Georgia?
In California, people tend to move every 7 to 10 years.
Yes.
So there's always like a supply and demand. But in Georgia, the people are more just set in their ways. So Your first time buyers there are generally older. Now, I should go back and say this. I work the Atlanta area in Georgia.
Right.
So I can't speak for the whole state. But
Right.
in that part, in the Atlanta part, the first time buyers are typically older.
Really?
So because they are typically older, they're not usually looking to move in 7 to 10
Exactly.
years. So when you sell them a property, they're basically probably going to stay in that property.
Okay.
So that's the difference, which means you constantly, as a realtor or even a mortgage broker, you're constantly having to market because you constantly have to bring in a customer.
That's right.
Whereas in California, I think of real estate as a relationship business.
Absolutely.
So if you build those relationships, you still have that business for years to come.
Right. Because even just, I've not sold real estate, but just on the mortgage banking side for me, I had customers that I might have done 3, 4, 5 loans for. They were a first-time home buyer. They sold that house, or they kept it as an investment property and bought another property. They refinanced it to fix it up so that the tenants moving in could move into a great place. They purchased another home. They might have bought an investment home, or they moved, or they referred me to their cousin or their sister, their friend.
So the difference between you and I is I'm doing those loans also, just like you're doing those loans,
Right.
but I'm also helping them find
the house.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, honestly, because I am tied to my desk a lot with doing the loans, the agents that work with me, they usually handle most of the showings.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because
That makes
it's
sense.
hard for me to get out to show homes
Right.
all the time.
Yeah.
I have a handful of customers that, they're like, oh, Tonya showed up to show the house. Yeah, because I
Right.
do what I have to do. But because the loan requires us to be so hands-on,
Definitely.
that a lot of times I can't go out and do a lot of showing, so my agents do that.
Because that was going to be my next question, because I know loans from doing loans is very time consuming. How do you balance both? But you have agents that work with you that will go out and do the showings.
And they do the showings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what about the listings? Do you do more of the listings?
I primarily do a lot of buyers.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say I'm primarily
A buyer's
agent, maybe like 80%.
Okay.
My listings typically come from my old clients selling their homes.
Right.
Or them referring me a friend or a family member. So that's typically where my listings come from.
Okay.
So in real estate, there's a saying that you list to last. I think it's a great saying, but I've lasted being a buyer's agent.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? It's different for different realtors.
Yeah.
Where their business comes from.
Yeah.
So.
And I think for me, because I'm primarily a mortgage broker, then of course it was just a natural fit for me to go towards buyers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it wasn't, that part isn't something I planned. First time buyers are my niche. It's not something I planned. It's what I kind of fell into, because back then I didn't know that I needed a niche.
Right, exactly. Because no one tells you that,
Yeah.
right? You just kind of, go along, and then,
yeah.
it comes together,
Yeah,
right?
it comes together. So back then I didn't know I needed a niche, but when I mentor now, that's one of the primary things that I have them do.
That's
a financial plan, a business plan, and choosing a niche.
I absolutely love that, because, from talking earlier, it's concerning to me that not enough, in my opinion, women and young African Americans go into the real estate and mortgage business. Like, it's such a scarcity. And I think it's because there's no one to mentor them in that way, in that field.
Right. I have a great concern, especially on the mortgage side, because I go out to the mortgage broker conventions and there's 2,500 people, but we're very underrepresented.
Absolutely.
And when I say very underrepresented, I don't mean like, oh, it's 10% of us.
No.
I mean, like, as women of color, there might be 6 of us.
That's right. So it's less than 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I very much wish that some younger women of color would actually come into the business.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
Very much so.
I agree. And I don't know what the turn was.
I don't either. It's just, I don't know what the turn was. I just looked up and all of a sudden we were underrepresented.
Yeah, and I think that when I
I
look
think it
back,
might be the recession. Yeah.
a lot of realtors and mortgage bankers didn't recover from that.
Yeah.
And they went into other fields and stayed, you know,
Yeah.
and we were the diehards that kept going.
Kept going, no matter
Right?
what.
Exactly.
I mean, I admit that during that time when we kind of rolled into that second year of the recession,
Yes.
I said, well, maybe I'll get a job.
Right.
And so I contacted my previous employer from the retail banking side. And he's like, well, yeah, you know, by then he had moved on to one of the big banks.
Okay.
And he's like, well, you know, I've been trying to recruit you. I said, okay, well, think about it. I did the interview. They sent me an offer. I looked at the offer. I saw what I would make. And I said, you know, I can make that struggling. So I just struggled through the recession.
Exactly.
Because I was thinking, okay, I'm going to make this, but then I'm going to have to drive downtown every day, and that's going to cost money.
Right.
And now I won't be able to take my son to and from school, so I have to get someone to do that. So now that's going to cost money. And now I have to buy lunch every day, and that's going to cost money. Yeah.
So when you started adding up the cost,
it wasn't
to go to work for someone else, it wasn't working. You could continue to stay independent and still create an income that you could at least survive on. Right?
Yeah. And actually you see more of that income because you're self-employed. So
that's right.
Me making the exact same thing that they were offering me, I could do more with it.
Right.
Because I see more of the income because I'm self-employed.
Exactly.
Because we write our stuff off.
We write our stuff
off at the end of the year.
Yes. And that's another thing, and I'm so glad you brought that up, is that the ability to write things off is huge. Huge when you're talking about the way the tax codes are written, you know. But that's another whole conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Now, how is it that you're running businesses in 2 states? Are you bi-coastal?
I was for a little while, but that got tiring very quick.
I was going to say, yes.
Yeah, I got very tired very quick. And so I moved to Atlanta for about 5 years. Spent some time to actually get that business off the ground.
Okay.
Now it's on a solid foundation, so I've returned home to California. I'm very happy about that because I miss my kids and my grandkids. And now technology.
Yes.
So technology is my friend. I do my agent trainings, my office meetings, and so forth using like Zoom.
Yes, Zoom is amazing. Yeah. I love Zoom.
So I do client consultations using Zoom. So yeah, so it's been amazing because I am still able to connect with those clients and build those relationships. Although I'm not physically there.
Right.
Yeah. So my agent says to me the other day, he's like, well, the clients still depend on you. They come to you for all their questions, but you're not here. And I'm like, yeah, they think you're just there to open doors.
Because you're only a phone call or a Zoom call away. Right? And the wonderful thing about Zoom is they can see you.
Yeah.
And so the conversation is more intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So technology's been my friend. The funny thing is I feel like since I left Atlanta 6 months ago, I've had more business there than I would have had if I stayed.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like business picked up when I left.
That's amazing. Yeah. That is amazing.
We'll see how it goes. But right now, that's what I'm doing is using the technology to manage.
That's a good thing. Is there some advice you would give women who are thinking about getting into real estate?
Yeah. First things first. I want them to understand that it's a tough industry because sometimes what people think about real estate is like, I'm going to get a license and then people are going to knock on my door and say, I want a house.
Yes.
And that's just not how it happens.
Right.
So I tell people it's 80-20. So it's 80% marketing and about 20% selling.
Yes.
So the 80% marketing means you always need to be marketing and prospecting so you can bring a customer in the door. You have to bring them in the door before they can become a client.
That's right.
And then as long as you have the knowledge and they're comfortable with you, it'll take that 20% selling to take care of itself.
That's right.
So I don't consider myself a salesperson. I
Right.
just don't. That's not my personality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of an educator.
Right.
And most of the agents that I mentor, that's the way I mentor them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just your knowledge kind of takes care of the sales part, but you have to spend a lot of time
Marketing.
focusing on marketing.
Yes, I agree.
And it's a hard business because oftentimes the people in the business are not friendly people.
You know, that is the truth.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not. So
Highly competitive,
highly
very cutthroat,
competitive.
and will not help you at
At
all.
all. So you have to be prepared to do some self training.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend people find a mentor if they can.
Yes.
Sometimes that can be hard because what you have to recognize is once you become a real estate agent, not the broker, you're just an agent.
Right.
Once you become an agent, you're a business owner.
That's right.
You're the business.
That's right.
So, and people kind of go in and they still have that employee
mentality.
You can't do that.
You can't sit and eat cupcakes
right
for breakfast and
right
sit there all day socializing.
Right. Once you decide to become an agent, then you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You're starting a business.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I stress to people when they say they're interested.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You have to be motivated because nobody's going to motivate you.
Nobody's going to motivate
And
you.
if you don't do anything, there's no paycheck.
That's right.
Yeah.
And no paycheck over an extended period of time
time.
to land you homeless. So that's not a good idea. What are some lessons you learned when you started your real estate business that you think will help other people?
The main thing is what we talked about earlier about managing your money.
Yes.
So I would say that's the main thing. When I first started, I was lucky.
Yeah.
Because I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to start this brokerage. I didn't know how much I didn't know, but I met a young lady that was my broker.
Okay.
So when I was purchasing this home and I did not want to use my employer for the loan, so I was referred to this broker.
Okay.
And we became friends. We're still friends.
Wow.
So she's like, oh, you're going to start your brokerage? And I'm like, yeah. So she said to me, here's a list of all of my account executives and the lenders that I'm approved with. Just call them and ask them for broker packages.
Wow.
So it was a lot of stuff that I would have needed to figure out myself.
That you had a mentor
that she
helped you.
just led me through.
Wow.
And then after that, I kind of got up and going, and she and we have remained friends, and our offices were right down the street from one another.
Wow.
So people would think like that's your competitor. No, there's enough to go around for everybody.
And that's the other thing. There's enough business
for
everybody. Right.
Yeah.
So, and to be able to, because I've been in the business a long time too, and to meet realtors who are willing to mentor other realtors and loan officers who are willing to mentor other loan officers is so few and far between. So you were very lucky. So few and
far between. So she really helped me just get on a solid foundation really quick, because otherwise I probably would have spent months figuring all of this stuff out. She's like, okay, you need X, Y, and Z. You need these type of forms. You need this. And so she really helped me, because I'm a business major. So I know the basics of starting a business. I went out, I could incorporate myself. I go down and get the business license. But the nuts and bolts of starting a mortgage brokerage and a real estate brokerage
is completely different.
It's different.
Yeah.
And she helped me with that.
That's really good. Yeah.
I didn't ask her. She just helped me. And then we bounce everything off of each other.
That's great.
She'll call, I'm having a problem with this transaction. Have you had this before? Yeah, do this. And then I do the same. I think we definitely need more women on the financial side, for one, because women, we have a certain sense of humility about us.
Right.
We're not so cut in stone.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially for a first-time home buyer, they really need their hand held in a lot of cases. And some of them think they're ready and they aren't. And they need someone who's willing to take that application, tell them what they need, and follow up with them so that they get to a space where they can purchase that first
Yeah,
home.
and unfortunately, the the men don't do
Don't
that.
normally, and they don't
Yeah.
normally have that kind of patience.
They don't have the patience.
No.
Yeah. So they generally say, "Hey, you don't qualify right now.
Come see me in 2
Come
years.
see me in 2 years, or go fix your credit."
Right.
And go fix your credit is my pet peeve.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Because how do they know
How
what
do you
to
know what
fix?
to do?
They don't know
Right.
what to do.
Exactly.
So I generally give people, I give them a little checklist.
Yes.
So I need you to do X, Y, and Z.
So they have a roadmap to success.
Mm-hmm. Because what happens is, if you've been doing it as long as we have,
Yes.
you and I know that if they're trying to fix their credit on their own, sometimes they're fixing the wrong thing.
That's right.
Because something may not even need to be
fixed. Leave that alone.
Leave that alone.
Right.
Yeah, but
concentrate on this over here.
But they
Right.
don't know that
Right.
because this guy just told them, "Hey, go fix your credit."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how do you manage your time?
Oh, okay. So I use old-fashioned pen and paper. I have a planner.
Me too.
I tried the computer.
Mm-hmm.
I tried the phone apps. None of that works for me. So I have an old-fashioned planner, and I use the 4 quadrants of time.
Yes.
So I do quadrant 1 is crises, 2 is planning and preparation, 3 is interruptions, and 4 is time wasters.
Right.
And then I plan my day every day at the end of the day.
Yes.
So I tried planning it in the morning, but somehow
can't
that
do it.
doesn't work out, and
Yeah.
everything just goes awry. So I plan it at the end of the day.
That's funny. I plan my day at the end of the day
Okay.
too. Because when I planned at the beginning, because I feel like, especially those interruptions, I think they happen, at least for me, they would happen more when I planned my day in the morning.
Me too.
I felt like I had more control.
When I plan at the end of the day. Yeah. So I plan my day every day at the end of the day.
Now, you just said that there's 4 quadrants, and you and I know what that is. But would you explain that a little bit more when you say that's how you manage your time?
So the crisis that's things that I didn't get done from the next day, but they're time sensitive.
Right.
So they have to be done first thing. And then the planning and preparation are things that if I don't do them, they're going to turn into a crisis.
Right.
But they still are time sensitive.
Yes.
Because in our business, everything is time
Everything
sensitive.
is time sensitive.
We're under a contract. We have to be done by a certain time, certain day. So those things go there. And then the interruptions, it's there on the quadrant. I don't necessarily write those down because how can you plan for interruptions?
Right, exactly. You can't.
Yeah, but they're there.
Right.
And then the time wasters are there. Now, I didn't used to write down the time wasters until social media came along.
Okay.
Because what I found myself doing is going on social media and I'm just gonna take a look at this, and then all this time has gone by. So I started keeping track of that, and then I saw where I was wasting time and why I had this many hours a day wasted away.
Right.
And so that's there just to kind of keep me focused on quadrant 1 and 2.
And 2, exactly. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that, because I think in any business we need to be able to see where the crises are and take care of those, plan our days so that the things that are necessary to be taken care of get taken care of, and then the time wasters and things like that, you're more focused, like stay on social media between this hour and this hour, right? Because why are you there? Entertainment.
And then the other thing too that I noticed is once my kids were adults and I didn't have anybody but me, for a little while I stopped planning.
Yes.
And everything just went awry. And I would be like, where'd the day go? Because, see, before I had to make sure I picked this person up from school, and that person had to get to that activity, and then you need to cook it this time, and then this needs to happen. So when that was no longer a part of my life, I thought I could just maybe, I guess I thought I could be willy-nilly about it. But,
and you can't.
And you can't.
Yeah. So that's a good point, because I think a lot of women, at least what I see, is I see a lot of women who have had other careers, who want to transition into becoming an entrepreneur. Their children are grown, and so now they feel more able to make that faith leap, planned faith leap, I hope. Don't just jump out the window. But that planned faith leap. And I think that for those women, because there's no boundaries anymore. Like you said, I don't have to have him at school at this time. I don't have to pick her up at this time. I don't have to cook at this time. So it's like being a teenager.
Right.
You can have all of this free time.
Right. And no boundaries. But you have to set boundaries for yourself.
Yes.
Because without those boundaries, I was like, well, how is it that I accomplished more with kids than without?
Right.
I still have the same 24 hours in the day. So, yeah, you have to set boundaries for yourself.
Absolutely. Now, what is your self-care regimen?
Okay.
Do you take time for that?
Yeah, I do. I have to admit that I don't do as much exercise as I should. I know my kids are going to see this. I don't do as much exercise as I should. I am starting to study yoga.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and earlier this summer we had like a family skate day. So I bought skates and I've been skating like once a month.
That's nice.
But I would like to get to the point where I'm doing it a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
So I'm slowly getting there.
Okay.
But my age, I'm over 50. So certain things are kicking in genetically.
Yes.
And when I go for my physical, they're like, you're great, but I know to stay great that I'm going to have to
increase
the level of exercise activity.
Yeah. And I have to admit too.
And I just like to eat ice cream.
Well, I'm lactose intolerant, so thank God that's not my vice. But I have other vices that I'm sure I love just as much as you love ice cream. Yeah. And I think like for myself, I had a slip and fall recently.
Okay.
And it really put me in a space that showed me just how delicate your health is.
Yeah.
And so I made a promise to myself as I'm mending that I'm going to definitely be more diligently focused on my health and well-being. So the pamper part, I got that down to a science.
Yeah, see, that's why I didn't even mention
right,
that.
The pamper part, I got that.
I didn't mention that because my hairstylist knows she's going to see me every Friday.
Right.
She's been seeing me every Friday for my son's 24, so the last 24 years.
Exactly.
Except for the time I moved to Atlanta.
Right.
So she knows she's going to see me. Yeah, like that part I got down. It's the health and wellness part that I need to work on.
And that's for me too. I have to focus more on it. And honestly, with this injury, I've had lots of time to sit and think about that.
Good.
So when I get the opportunity to get up and do something about it, I definitely will. So I'm glad you said that. Building a business has its ups and downs. And what did you do through the rough patches to get through the rough patches?
What I tell people is I had tunnel vision, and I just kept moving forward.
Yes.
I guess I don't even know if I'm the person to tell that story. I think the kids could probably tell it better.
Yeah.
Because basically I just kept working. No matter what, I kept working. And at one point, I started doing short sales.
Right.
And so I remember my friends, other brokers, they're like, what are you doing? We need money now. And with those short sales, you're not going to get money for 4 to 5 months. And so for me, I was like, well, I'd rather have money in 4 to 5 months than in 4 to 5 months, I'm still saying I need money.
Right.
So, I just kept grinding and just kept pushing forward.
Same here.
Yeah. I mean, I knew at some point, we'd come out of it. But that's what I did. I just put my head down
and kept going.
And kept going.
Yeah. And it's that.
And cut back. You had to cut back your lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah. That cut back everything to
bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
You're going home and you're cooking tonight.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So the bare minimum.
The bare minimum, and that's what I did, and it worked out. I feel like coming out on the other side, you're better than you actually were before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And you're more cautious, and I, at least for myself, and it sounds like for you too, more focused on what your next step
What your next step
is going to be. Yeah.
I do want to say this because I know there's a lot of people that are interested in the business. They may even be interested in becoming brokers.
Yes.
I do operate an independent mortgage and real estate brokerage, which means I'm not under one of the franchises.
Right.
I did consider going under one of the franchises when I first started my business because we were doing so well. I checked out a few of the big franchises.
Yes.
But once I did the numbers, what I found was my net would be just the same as if I owned a big franchise with 120 people in it. Okay, so you just do your numbers.
Right.
And I say that to let people know that it's okay to be independent. You don't always have to go to one of the corporate giants.
Yes. Exactly. I'm glad you said that. You can be just as successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trust me, even during that time that we were just talking about, those agents sitting in the corporate giant, they were just as broke as the independents.
Exactly.
If not broke.
If not, yeah. Because that split is something else.
Yeah.
Right. That that. So, and that's something that when someone is looking at mortgage banking and real estate, and deciding. That's another thing that they want to take into consideration is, you don't look at the big number, you look at your split from that big number.
And not only the split, but the other smaller fees that you're charged. So
that's right.
When you're becoming a real estate agent, you will have to work under a broker. But I think consider more of the independent brokerages because a lot of times our splits may be a little better.
More attractive.
And you might find an actual mentor there. Someone that
and
has time to
you
mentor.
need a mentor sometimes, and not to knock the big machines because the big machines work, but sometimes a more intimate atmosphere allows you to learn more at a more intimate level.
Yes.
And at a friendlier level. Because the competitiveness, although, people who are competitive, but I think it's a lot less abrasive.
Right.
When you're in a smaller company.
Right.
It's more like a family.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. So it popped up. And
I'm glad you did because you're absolutely right. What are some safety measures that you would tell a realtor to take when they're either going to meet with a new client or show a property?
Well, I'm going to base it on my company because I do 98% of the loans for the people in my company. So I've already pre-approved them. I have all their information.
Right.
I know I have their ID. I know where they work. I have so much background information
exactly.
on this person.
That they are safe.
So I'm happy you're safe.
Right.
But we also we always tell someone where we're going. So and we have a showing schedule.
Okay.
So I can look at that showing schedule and I can tell you where this person, the vicinity of
that
where they're in at this particular time. And I ask them to have a buddy system, let this person know, okay, I'm going to show this person and I'll be in this vicinity in this time, and then call when it's over.
Yes.
So just kind of some stuff to
and just be thoughtful.
Always get identification.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen where people just called up and said, hey, I wanted to see a house, and the realtor went out to show them, and I'm thinking, why'd they do that?
Right.
So always try to find some type of way to identify the person.
Right.
If they say, oh, well, hey, I'm already pre-qualified, and they want to send you a letter from, a loan officer that you don't know or something, then, ask for their ID. If they don't want to send the ID, don't show.
Yeah, because they should be willing to and open to showing you their identification.
And honestly, in Georgia, it's a carry state.
Right, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yes, I would hope that more of the women there carry.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is a carry state.
Girl, you want to be looked. Now, when you look back at when you started your business and where you're at now, in hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently?
I think I would have planned a little better because it just, I planned, of course, but once I started the business, it took on a life of its own.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would always say start with planning and some systems and
In
programs
place.
and processes in place.
Yes.
Yes. So I developed those over time.
Right.
But there's a ton of people that tell you how to put the systems in place. Do that to begin with.
Okay.
Yes.
So put your systems in place first.
First.
Okay.
Very much so. Otherwise, it'll just take on a life of its own.
Yeah. Now, here's one. When you're negotiating a contract, and you know how that can go when it's a listing, what is some advice you'd give a new listing agent?
When you negotiate, I try to go in from a win-win standpoint.
Yes.
Because I don't want to go in adversarial. So I go in from a win-win standpoint. So I'm going to look at the comps and I'm going to make a fair offer. I'm going to tell my buyer to make a fair offer. And so, of course, it's going to be fair to your seller. And then we have a good place to start negotiations.
Yes.
I don't want to insult the seller.
Right.
And I just don't want to be adversarial.
Right.
And I find in doing that, I get to the closing table a lot faster than if we are, I'm going to start 30,000 lower, even though I know it's worth it. Like, it's just a bunch of craziness.
Right. It's unnecessary craziness.
Yeah. I'm too old on these.
What's the best part of your business?
Helping people.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that.
Helping people.
Yeah. And that's the thing I love too, helping people.
This year, I have helped 4 of my clients' children buy homes.
Wow.
And that has just made me the happiest.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh wow, I'm working with another
next generation.
Yeah. So it's really cool for to know that they entrust me with their children. And it's really cool for some people to say, yeah, my daughter said, Mom, can you call Tonya?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And for me, if I know you get this too, is that now you have their trust, so they refer their friends to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. I love that.
It's a relationship business.
It really is.
Some people treat it transactional.
And it's relationship.
It's relationship.
Yeah.
And if you treat it as a relationship business, you will build a business that you'll stay in business forever.
For a lifetime.
Yeah. I have clients that one client I always think of, I helped her buy her first house. She refinanced that house maybe twice. Then I sold that house. She bought the second house. She refinanced that house once. And then I sold that house and she bought the third house.
See, that's a relationship.
And it's a relationship. And we did all this over the last 20 years. Yeah.
So it's a person who is a friend.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. You asked what I like, the friendships and the relationships that have come from the business.
From the business.
Yeah. Because some of those people are not clients anymore. They're like my actual friends.
Exactly.
Yeah. Our kids have grown up together. Like, oh, I'm at your 50th birthday party.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Now, how do we contact you?
Okay, so I can be reached by phone at 888-828-4889.
Yes.
Online at blissliferealty.com or by email at Tonya Brown at blissliferealty.com. And my Blisss has 3 S's. It's BLISSS.
And what made you decide on the name Blisss?
It's an affirmation for me and the women in my tribe.
Yes.
So actually what it is Black, independent, successful, smart, and secure.
I love that.
So it's just an affirmation for us.
Yeah. I love that. Tonya, what are you going to be up to next? What's next for Tonya?
Yeah. I'm currently mentoring my son and a couple of family members. So I'm putting my succession plan in place.
Yes.
In the next 5 or 6 years, I'm going to concentrate more on philanthropy.
Yes.
And a nonprofit that I'm starting that will launch this February 2020, and it's the Minority Home Buyer Initiative.
Ooh.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, we would like to assist more minority home buyers
Yes.
with becoming homeowners. So our mission is to educate and basically get them there from point A to point
To
C.
point B. And I like that because people of color, they need the help,
Yeah.
and want the help.
Yeah.
So to have someone who's willing to help,
Yeah.
why not? So that's why we encourage you, if you're even thinking about becoming a loan officer or mortgage banker, real estate agent, or even being a broker and owning your own, we encourage you 100% to try that. Now, Tonya, what are some of the misconceptions about real estate when it pertains to millennials?
Okay, some of the misconceptions they have, the biggest I would say is down payment and credit. They tend to think they need a lot of money for down payment.
Yes.
Most people think you need 20%. You don't. You can get finance with as little as 3%
That's
down.
right.
And most people think you need excellent or perfect credit. You do
don't.
not.
That's right.
I can finance you with a 580 credit score.
Right.
If you have money, I can do a 550. But one of the biggest things I also find for millennials, of course, is with the student loan debt and so forth, they don't always, it's hard, especially in California, you're paying a lot of rent.
Yes.
So they can't save the money for down payments,
Right.
right? There are a ton of down payment assistance programs here that are for millennials or people that are even not millennials.
Yes.
It just means that you haven't owned a home in the last 3 years.
Right.
And I really want to get that message out there because the biggest misconception is people think that it's for low income. And it's not.
That's right.
It's not. So I'm saying to my millennials, if you guys have a good job, you can get down payment assistance and basically get in your home with no money down.
Right. And stop renting.
And stop renting. You can make up to $144,000 in Los Angeles County, $138 in San Bernardino and Riverside counties, and up to $110 in Atlanta.
Yes. So millennials,
you
can purchase too. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a question I wanted to make sure.
There's money there for you.
There's definitely money there for you.
Yeah, because people think that it's only for low income, and it's not.
And it's not. No.
So there's a lot of money going to waste.
Exactly, because people don't know about it.
And the other thing I want to say for the millennials too is sometimes they say, oh, well, you think maybe I should wait? No, because as you're waiting, the prices are increasing.
Yeah.
So, and then you're going to wait and it's going to be higher and you're going to need more. It doesn't make sense. If you can purchase right now, you purchase right now, and that 5 years you would have spent waiting, you will spend building equity.
That's right. In that home.
In that home, and building wealth in that home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think they just need to be educated about, of course, a home is a place to live, but it's also an investment.
That's right.
Yeah. It's the foundation to building your wealth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I love
Tonya.
my millennials.
I do too.
I'm always so happy when one of them buys.
Right. When they buy a home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And you promised to come back?
I will.
Okay. So this is Charline, and I love this conversation. I'm in mortgage banking, so to have a realtor who's also in mortgage banking who's a broker is just wonderful for me to have someone like you to talk to. And I definitely want us to have some other conversations because I think there's a lot of good things we can do.
Yeah, I think so too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this is Charline. I'm the host of Girl Talk, and this has been a great conversation, and we'll see you again soon.